Getting credit cards starting with bad credit is tough. The options are not that great and it can be expensive. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to climb the credit card ladder starting with bad credit. Whether you're just looking to get a credit card with better perks or higher limits, I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. In fact, all of the things that I will mention in this video, I have done for myself. I have over 40 something credit cards, 6 figures in available credit, and accumulated millions of points. I also had a credit repair agency helping people join the 700 plus club and getting cards that they want. So let's get into it. So why even bother climbing the credit card ladder? For starters, building a better credit profile is key. Did you know that a third of folks in the US are dealing with poor credit? If your credit score dips below 669, you're looking at fewer choices and higher costs. So getting savvy with credit cards is more than just a nice to have skill, it's a must have if you are trying to dodge those hefty interest fees. Next up, let's talk about using credit cards as a backup emergency fund. Now, I'm all for having actual cash set aside for emergencies, it's your best bet. But having an extra credit line, it adds to a layer of comfort just in case. And here's the big one, saving money. With the right card, you're pocketing anywhere between 1 to 5% on all sorts of everyday expenses like gas, groceries, dining out, travel, you name it. It's like getting a little thank you for spending on what you need anyways. For me, the cherry on top of climbing the credit card ladder is the travel perks. Family trips don't have to break the bank when your credit card rewards cover a good chunk of the cost. Whatever your reason for stepping up the ladder, it's a move worth taking. Today, we're going to break down the credit card ladder into 6 tiers, ranging from the bottom rung all the way to the top. So the tiers are 0, starter, standard, preferred, premium, and ballers only. For each tier, we'll cover the credit scores that you need to be in that tier, examples of the credit cards that fit, how long you typically will stay in that tier, and what steps that you need to take to climb up to the next level. Without further ado, let's dive in and map out your path from 0 to ballers only. Let's kick it off with tier 0. Aim at those with a credit score of 580 and below. At this level, credit challenges are common. You might be facing high credit card debt, a few late payments, and probably a few delinquencies. If this sounds familiar, my advice is to pause on applying for new credit cards. It's important to address the root of the issue and not just treating the symptoms. Correcting your credit could potentially level you up to several tiers up, because most likely you've already built up a credit profile but just made some mistakes along the way. So fixing these mistakes can fast track you up the credit card ladder. Now onto the quickest way to boost your credit score, potentially overnight, is to simply reduce your credit card debt. Okay, I know that this sounds way easier than it actually is, but do the best you can. If you are financially stretched, open up a new credit card in the hopes of improving your score isn't the best move. Approval is going to be tough, and you're likely going to get a low credit limit. Addressing credit card debt boils down to paying it off as much as you can. Another option could be a debt consolidation loan, though this still requires a fair credit score. Remember, credit card debt weighs heavier on your credit score than loans due to its changing nature. On the other hand, loans are fixed installment debts, predictable with consistent monthly payments until fully paid off. Given that debt plays a huge role on credit scores, lowering your debt is the fastest route to a better score. Another strategy to boost your credit score is becoming an authorized user on someone else's account. The benefit is that if the primary account holder has a strong credit history, a high credit limit, and long account age, these factors can positively influence your credit score. Now, finding someone to add you might be challenging. It's not always easy to ask family or friends for such a favor, especially if they are cautious. The key is to reassure them that you won't even use the account. You could suggest destroying the card upon receiving or letting them keep it so you won't actually use their card. The goal is to benefit from their credit profile without impacting their finances. Of course, you would only want to do this if the account is older and if the person is good with their credit cards. You want to get added on as an authorized user if they constantly have maxed out credit cards or late payments on that account. If you have no one that can do this for you, then there's another route, purchasing trade lines. This pay-for-play strategy involves being added onto a stranger's credit account for a fee. You want to look for accounts that's been aged 5 years or more with high limits for the best impact on your credit approval chances. Also, keep in mind that this is a short-term strategy and the trade line will be removed after a few months after it has been reported to the credit bureaus. The next thing that will help your credit score by putting you in the best position to get better credit cards is by seeking credit repair. You can do this yourself or hire professionals. The goal is to identify and challenge any inaccuracies, outdated information, or unverifiable accounts on your credit report. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA, credit bureaus must thoroughly investigate disputed items. If they cannot verify the information, then they would have to remove it, potentially boosting your credit score. Credit repair might seem like it's a lot, but it is designed for consumers to manage themselves. You get a higher success rate if you do it yourself, since you're going to be mailing out the letters directly from your home address. So, as a shameless plug, I do have an AI-powered DIY software called Credit Rehab Pro. You can repair credit seamlessly just with a few clicks and it will create letters for you. Or you can join a private community, the Credit Collective, that includes all the credit repair steps, plus I'll help you along the way. All of the information will be down in the description. Since I imagine that you probably had credit cards before, consider looking into credit builder loans or other types of installment loans to add a little bit more variety to your credit mix. These often comes as secure loans, meaning essentially you're taking out a loan against your own money. There are several options out there, but here are a few that I would recommend, which is Covo, Credit Strong, and Self. I won't dive deep into each company right now, but for those that are interested in a thorough review, I've covered them in a previous video where you can find the links up above or down in the description below. For those who experienced a bankruptcy and has been discharged, hang on tight because I'll discuss which tier that you might fall into later in this video because your situation is a bit unique. So in the 0 tier, I would advise against rushing into getting new credit cards. Instead, the goal is to strengthen your credit profile and remove delinquencies. Depending on how many delinquencies that you have, you may remain in this tier for a few months, even to a couple of years, depending on the success of your disputes. Now let's move on to tier 1. These are going to be for people who are new to credit or looking to rebuild and never had a card before. Basically starting on a fresh slate. At this level, credit scores typically are not a factor. This is going to include secure credit cards and credit cards that are targeted towards newbies, usually students. So first, let's go over secure credit cards. Secure credit cards are cards that require a minimum deposit, which typically ranges anywhere between $200 to $1,000. And that security deposit will be acting as your credit limit. Whenever you close the account, or when it graduates or upgrades to a traditional unsecured credit card, you would then get that security deposit back. So just make sure that you get one that does, because there are some secure cards out there that do not, so they would just keep your security deposit and it would just be sitting there. Now, I get it, having a couple $100s as a credit limit doesn't sound all that exciting, but the point is, it's not supposed to be. Cards at this level are training wheels for you to get used to a credit card and how to use it properly. Like making transactions, then paying off the balance in full by the due date, being aware of your credit limit, and just developing good habits. Here are some recommended cards that don't have an annual fee and will allow you to graduate to a traditional credit card. This would include the Bank of America, Bank Americard Secure Credit Card, TD Cash Secure Credit Card, US Bank Secure Credit Card, and a Navy Federal and Rewards Secure Credit Card if you can get into Navy Federal. Now, let's talk about unsecured credit cards. Unsecured credit cards are the type of cards that you would want to get. This is what you would think about when you think of a credit card. This is where a company would extend you a credit limit and whatever you spend on it, you would have to pay back. My best piece of advice for those who are starting off that are new to credit or with no credit is to try to find beginner cards at banks or credit unions that you are currently using. The reason being is that you have already built some sort of relationship with them, either by having a direct deposit, a checking account, or even a saving account with them. This will give you more brownie points when you are applying for a card. This shows lenders already that you know how to manage your money with your checking or savings account, so they can understand your financials even though you have no credit score. By not having a relationship with any bank or lender, getting approved for one of their cards is gonna be that much harder. But if they know you already, then it's going to be easier to get approved. For instance, the Chase Freedom Rise credit card says that if you have a Chase checking account with at least a balance of $250, this will increase your chances of getting approved. This is definitely a great starter card if you are trying to get into the Chase ecosystem, since Chase offers some of the best credit cards out there. Another bank that's very friendly for those who are new to credit is Capital One. They have the Quicksilver One Rewards credit card and the Platinum MasterCard. Now, it is also good to look at companies that offer student credit cards, since these are the type of cards that are going to be tailored more towards people who are starting their credit journey. Also, at this level, you don't want to shotgun your credit by applying for as many credit cards as you can. There are plenty of lenders out there that offer a pre-qualification or a specific way to check your approval odds before getting your credit pulled, so just make sure that you take advantage of that. Now, these are never perfect, but they can give you a snapshot whether or not you want to take the leap. So just remember that some of these entry-level cards can be kept forever, and you really don't have to upgrade unless you have a secure card. But the whole point at this level is to get used to credit cards, knowing how to pay them on time, and just starting to build that credit profile. So ideally, you want to be at this level for at least 6 months to a year. I personally think a year is best, since you probably built out a pretty solid payment history and now you're getting the hang of how credit cards work. This is the foundation of your credit building history and leveling up. So some people will pick it up much sooner, and some just may take some more time to do so. So remember, if you are new to credit, it doesn't have to cost money to start building it. Now let's move on to tier 2. This is going to be individuals who have credit scores between 580 and 669, and this will put you in the fair credit range. So at this level, you're going to be looking for unsecured credit cards that have no annual fee, and you're going to be seeing cards with intro offers and maybe a decent percentage of cashback or points. Also, your income starts to play a bigger role. Obviously, the more money that you make, the better your odds of approval and higher limits. For credit cards in this tier, these will most likely be your forever cards, and you most likely have them in your rotation on a continuous basis. Now, at this level, your goal is to get used to optimizing your credit cards. In our previous level, this is essentially where you start getting the hang of credit cards. Now, this is where you want to start figuring out how to manage multiple credit cards. At this level, you probably have more than just one, so it's really just organizing your credit management and starting to optimize your cards when it comes to spending. For instance, this is when you start to see more cards with spending categories, like 2% cash back at dining or 3% cash back when you use it for travel purposes. So this is where you would want to start optimizing your cards so you get the most back. Or you could just simply get a 2% cash back card and just not think about it. At this level, you should still steer away from cards with annual fees just so you can hone your skills in your organization. So you would most likely be in this stage for the next 6 months to indefinitely, but I recommend for at least 6 months, just so that your credit has time to build enough of a credit history and your average age of accounts will start to look older. So at this time, you should build a pretty solid credit score at this point where you can move on to the next level where the options are going to be way better. If you're still in the credit repair process, you may still need to continue to put in the work to get items removed. If unsuccessful, then you would just have to let the negatives age a little bit more. The cards in this range are going to overlap with tier 1 since the credit score range may not get you the best options, but there are some still pretty solid ones out there. Citi has some pretty good ones like the Citi Custom Cash Card and a Double Cash Card. So with both of these, you may see intro offers like 0% APR for a certain amount of time and cash offers. Now, if you are a renter or just want to get into the points and miles game, the Bilt card is probably one of the best cards in that space when it comes to that. Based on data points, requirements can go as low as 650 for a credit score, but I would say this is a little bit rare for approvals. This is where you can start playing and transferring points so you can optimize those to get more value. You usually don't see this until you move up to the next tier, which is the preferred tier, but this is where you can start dabbling in playing that game. Another place to consider at this level is credit unions. They tend to be more favorable for people with fair credit. Navy Federal is notorious for this. There are plenty of ways to get in, so if you want to, you can check the video up here or check it out in the description. So through Navy Federal, I would suggest the Platinum or the Cash Rewards since they're probably easier to start with. Now let's move on to tier 3. This is what I would like to call the preferred tier. This is where your credit score is between 670 and 739. This is where it starts to get a lot more interesting. You have plenty of more options, plus this is where you can get better credit cards that offer more benefits and perks, and some of them may require an annual fee. But you don't have to worry because a lot of times the annual fee may be justified because these cards will offer some additional benefits and perks that counteract that annual fee. This is where you start to see points and miles rather than cash back. Think of Chase, American Express, Capital One, and Citi. They all have their own currency of points and you can redeem them for a bunch of different things, but you would get more value if you were to spend them towards travel. This is where you start to see more of the travel cards start to show up. Now, you don't have to use the points earned from these cards just for travel, but you will tend to see more value if you were to spend them in that way. This is where you start to see way bigger intro offers. This is where you can see them range between $500 even up to $1,000 in value. In the previous tier, you may get lucky to see a welcome offer, but at this level is way more common. That being said, the spend required to hit these welcome offers are going to be much higher as well. I personally think the majority of people watching this video will stay in this tier for most of their lifetime. So unless you're really serious about travel, then there's really no point in moving up the ladder unless you want to. Let's take a look at some of the cards that I deem to be in the preferred tier. So let's start off with the no annual fee credit cards. First, let's go over Chase. I would recommend the Chase Freedom credit cards. Some people would say that this would be on the lower tier since they're more beginner friendly. They are, but you tend to have a better credit score to get approved for these or have built a relationship with Chase. Now, these two cards are the key factors into the Chase trifecta. If you're trying to get into the points and miles game, I would highly recommend starting to get credit cards from Chase so you just don't lock yourself out from the 524 rule, which states that if you have opened 5 or more personal accounts in the past 2 years, you would get a denial. Now from Capital One, there are plenty of good options as well. This could be the Venture One Rewards or the Save Your One Cash Rewards credit card. With American Express, they have very few no annual fee credit cards, so the one that I would suggest would be the Blue Cash Everyday card. Wells Fargo has two pretty solid options with no annual fee, so this would be the Autograph and the Active Cash card. Now when it comes to cards with annual fees, there are plenty of good options in this range. This could be the Chase Sapphire Preferred, Capital One Venture Rewards, Citi Premier, and the MX Gold card. All of these cards have benefits and perks in their own right, but just make sure that before you get these cards that you can justify using the credits or if it's worth keeping for the second year. At this level, you start to earn more rewards, plus you have the ability to transfer your rewards to different partners so you get more value. This is also at the level where you could consider specific hotel or airline cards. The only thing about these is that at first they're usually pretty great because the intro offers are high, but unless it gives you a free night stay or a recurring rewards for the second year, it's really hard to justify keeping. I would consider these cards last since there's not that much flexibility to them and you're tied to a specific program. Now, if you want to move up the ladder, then you would want to make sure that your organization is down packed. You really want to spend some time here understanding maximizing value. You also want to make sure that you are consistently hitting the minimum spends for the welcome offers. If not, you're just leaving money on the table. Again, if travel is not your thing, then you can stop here. I would say that you will want to spend around 3 to 6 months here. Now let's move on to tier 4, which is the premium level. This is usually the end of the road for most people who are trying to climb the ladder. This is where I'm at right now, and I don't really think that I'm gonna move up the credit card ladder to anything higher, and I'm perfectly cool with that. This is where you would want to have a credit score in the range of 740 and above to get the best approval odds. At this level, you should expect to pay an annual fee of roughly around $400 to $700. But with these cards, they generally have a high welcome offer and a lot of valuable perks that come along with them. So cards in this level are going to be geared towards people who want to travel because the perks and benefits usually cater towards those who do. Because you start to get lounge access, TSA and global entry credits, hotel credits, plus you get additional other credits as well, such as dining out and luxury shopping. Now, at this tier, this is where you really have to be careful with the credits and whether or not it's going to be worth it for you to offset the annual fee. Because a lot of cards at this level almost kind of look like a prepaid coupon book. A perfect example of this would be the American Express Platinum card, but I'll go over this a little bit later. Because if you're not going to be using these cards properly and maximizing all of its credits, then it may end up costing you more than just holding any other credit card that doesn't have an annual fee. There's going to be a lot of things going on with these cards as well, because some of the benefits and credits may be on a monthly, bi-yearly, or even on a yearly basis. So organization is key here if you're going to be playing in this tier. Now, the goal at this level is just optimization and trying to figure out how you can squeeze the most value from your credit cards. You already moved through the tiers and you have a good understanding of how credit works, and you probably booked travel using your points and miles already. So right now, rather than just thinking about getting bonuses, you're thinking about maximizing value and comfort. This is not to say that you need to be doing any of this with any of these cards, but this is where it makes sense. Now, there's really no other desire to go above this tier. I've personally been in this tier for years now, but to get above this, it really comes down to spending a lot of money. When I mean a lot of money, I'm talking about 6 figures a month to even having a net worth of over $10 million, but that's coming up next. So these are the cards that I would consider to be in tier 4. This would include the American Express Platinum, Chase Sapphire Reserve, Venture X, and Citi Prestige card. Now there are a few others, but those are typically tied to hotel chains or airlines, but the 4 that I mentioned are probably going to be the biggest players in the premium credit card space. So let's go over the American Express Platinum, which is probably the most famous and well-known card in this tier. These are some of the features and benefits that come along with this card. Right now at the making of this video, you can earn 80,000 points after spending $8,000 within the first 6 months. Since MX welcome offers are once in a lifetime, I would honestly wait until a 100K offer comes along. You get 5x on flights when you book them directly through airlines and American Express Travel, up to $500,000 per calendar year, up to a $200 hotel credit, $240 digital entertainment credit, $155 Walmart credit, $200 airline fee credit, $200 Uber cash credit, $300 Equinox credit, $189 Clear Plus credit, $100 global entry credit, $100 Saks credit, and a $300 SoulCycle at home credit. You also get access to the Centurion Lounge, Delta Sky Club if you're flying with Delta, and Priority Pass and partner lounges. You also get gold status for Marriott Bonvoy and Hilton Honors, so you can get all of this for an annual fee of $695. There is a calculator that you can use down in the description to see whether or not this card is worth it for you. So for me, let me plug in my info since I've held this card for a couple of years now. This is how I value my credits. I value Uber Cash, airline fee credit, and hotel credit. The other ones are nice to have, but I probably would not be shopping at Saks or getting cleared normal anyways, so I would not be valuing these. When it comes to lounges, I travel a couple times a year, and if I have time, I would stop at the lounge. So being pretty conservative of what a meal costs at the airport, which is usually around 20 bucks or so. From that standpoint, with the Centurion and Priority Pass lounges, I value it as $160. I honestly don't plan on booking any flights using this card or using it for any other categories. This is purely a travel card for me. Based on the perks and credits minus the annual fee, this puts me at $65 in value. Now, this is not terrible since I'm essentially getting more value than the fee. When you should be worried is when you start seeing negative value. That's why you really have to be truthful with yourself of how much you value the credits, because normally people will not be using them if it wasn't there. If you don't use it, you lose it. Don't get me wrong, a lot of these premium travel credit cards make sense during year 1, but year 2 is when you really have to reconsider. So in this tier, this is where the road ends for most, which is perfectly fine. Now let's move on to the next tier, which I call ballers only. So at this level, you're probably in the top 0.1%. Honestly, there's really no reason to get cards in this tier. The only reason anyone would get these cards is to flex or to show off. It's cool to say that you have it or just to whip it out, but the added value is just not there. The 2 cards that are most famous in this category will be the American Express Centurion card, also known as the Black Card, and a JP Morgan Reserve card. With the Centurion card, it is by invitation only. Right off the bat, you would have to pay a $10,000 initiation fee just to get in the club, and there is an annual fee of $5,000. Now, there are a lot of rumors and speculation of how much you would need to spend on your Amex account to get an invitation. Some people say multiple 6 figures a year to 6 figures every single month before they hand out an invitation. So there's really no set spending limit that you need to hit, or whether or not they would even offer you to join. But it is said that it is easier to get the business Centurion card rather than the personal one, since it is much easier to spend a lot on business expenses. In all reality, this card really isn't all that different from the Platinum card. There are some added benefits, like you get automatic elite status at certain hotel chains like IHG, Hilton, and Marriott. You also get complimentary Delta SkyMiles Platinum Medallion status, but what they're most famous for is a 24/7 access to private concierge service. Now, going through the Reddit forums, there are stories about how this one gentleman who had a cold brown situation in his pants, and he called up his concierge service, and they were able to deliver him a new set of clothes to his hotel and get it delivered right to his stall. Now, there's really no saying whether or not this story is true or not, but going through the thread, it seems it could be possible. Even if you don't get an invitation to the Centurion card, you can get a combination of cards that will give you similar perks, but it's gonna cost you though. This would be the Amex Plat, Hilton Expire, and Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant. The next card in the ballers only category will be the JP Morgan Reserve card. In a nutshell, this is another invite only credit card, which is only reserved for customers with at least $10 million in assets that are managed by JP Morgan Private Bank. The rewards program for this card is pretty much identical to the Chase Sapphire Reserve. The only added benefit is a United Club access. The annual fee for this card is $595, while the Chase Sapphire Reserve is only $550. So that pretty much wraps up for this video. I understand that if you're starting from bad credit, it's tough. It may be a long journey if you're not able to remove any of those delinquencies or negative accounts off your credit report, and you may just have to wait it out and let your delinquencies age. Normally, after year 4, they have less of an effect on your credit score, and you should see your credit score rise by then. I would highly recommend trying to remove them as soon as possible, since this is when they would have the most impact. If you need help with credit repair, I do have some resources down in the description below. Now, if you want to hang out with me some more and learn more about credit, you could check out these videos over here.